I am Nahid Kabbani, and this is the Lighthouse for today's viewers. Welcome to our show. First of all, we would like to say happy 4th of July to all our viewers. Happy Independence Day. Hopefully the whole world will be independent, and any country wish that Independence Day should have it soon. Women in general. Who is the woman? She is the mother, she is the wife, she is the sister, she is the daughter. She is the life giver for the whole world. We forget that sometimes. Today, we have women discussing about something else different than the house. We have women in media from different ethnic background working in this subject, this kind of communication, which is important like any other job for women. Let's hear from our guests. Welcome to our show.
สวัสดีค่ะ Hi Nahid. Thank you very much for the opportunity to invite us to come on your show. My name is, first of all, Siri Pachari Sipipat, or well known for Superpat in the Thai community. I am the owner, publisher of the Inter-Thai Pacific Rim News, the first bilingual Thai and English newspaper. Have been established for over 10 years, and as well as right now, I own my own program, which is called Superpat Variety in the satellite cable TV via to Thailand, and it's nationwide. And right now is we show 3 times a week, which is on Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thank you very much.
That's good.
Hi, I'm Ellen Endo, and I'm the managing editor of the Los Angeles Japanese Daily News, which is also known as the Rafu Shimpo, and it is 103 years old. We're founded by 2 USC students back in 1903, and it is now the oldest and largest bilingual newspaper serving the Japanese American community in the United States. I thank you for this opportunity to talk with everyone.
That's good.
I'm Erin Aubrey Kaplan. I write a weekly op-ed column for the Los Angeles Times, which is not ethnic media. It is, I'm an ethnic voice in mainstream media. I have covered the African American community in Los Angeles for about 13 years since I first started reporting in Los Angeles. And prior to the LA Times, I wrote for many years for the LA Weekly, which is an alternative paper. Also, I was an ethnic voice in alternative media. And I got my start actually in a very small publication called Accent LA, which was a monthly black news magazine that unfortunately is no longer around. But I tried to carry that mission forward in wherever I'm writing. So thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I'm Nahid Kabbani. I am in media, in Arab American media, and in our show today we are producing this show, but I would like to introduce our co-host, Mr. Julian Duke. He is not a woman, but he is helping us today. Okay, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, Nahid. As Nahid mentioned, my name is Julian Doe. I'm the co-director for New America Media. And I guess my role today is to be an agent provocateur. And also to kind of playing the devil advocate on some of these issues. And so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, thanks. I'm also happy to be here. I'm Gloria Alvarez, and I'm the managing editor at Eastern Group Publications. And we are a chain of 10 bilingual weekly community newspapers, English and Spanish. And our flagship paper has been around since 1945, but it's a family-owned newspaper, and it's been, they've owned it for 28 years, and we have a woman publisher. So I'm also very happy to be here.
You're welcome.
My name is Joanna Bukartumi. I'm very happy as well to be here, and thank you so much. I've been working in the community for about 10 years, a little more, as an advocate and building bridges of peace and communication between all ethnic people. That's helping to create a better visibility for our diversity and just embracing the oneness of what we need to do to help the world understand that we all have rights and we all have an image that is we need to define. So on behalf of Alo Hayati and Ms. Wafa Kanan, I'm here as an ambassador and public relations spokesperson for this magazine. And it is a very empowering tool for the people, and it's my pleasure to address some of your questions.
Welcome to our One World Show.
Thank you.
So we would like to start with the problem or what the women have in this kind of business. So maybe Mr. Julian, you'd like to start the questions?
Yes, I have the honors of working in the media for about almost 10 years, mixtures of mainstream medias and also more recently in the ethnic media world. And that we are seeing still a very low percentage of ethnic women representations in the media in general. And that is also a challenge in the ethnic media as well. And so, but I think for the audience to have an appreciation about the issues, if I could ask the panelists to think about the issues that why it matters, why is it important that we have good representations of women in the media and ethnic women in particular. If I could start with Superpat.
Well, I have to tell you that it is a blessing to become a woman in media, because everywhere I go, once they know that I'm a reporter, I'm an anchor woman, everybody seems to be, very supportive, give me help, and, try to find a way. Another word is try to go out of their way to help me because I'm a woman. Like you said, woman is not only for mother, for wife, but yet also when they see the woman working, to me right now in this century or this generation, seem to be like people accepted more in women to work rather than before. But yet it comes to the problem, it seems to be like, the reporters or whatsoever, they still keep look down on us. Like, hey, I'm better than you because of, we are men, we've been in this kind of field for longer than you are, and then why you get help from, let's say, from the companies or from the government, they seem to be, they give you a handicap and helping you in that way. So the only problem I run through is, from the male colleagues, like they just say, hey, wait a minute, who are you? Where are you coming from? And then also to become a Thai, we speak with the accent. It seems to be very difficult for us. We really have to research twice more rather than regular American media or American anchor. We have to study more, research more, and we have to figure out on how to use the right word in order to ask the questions so people can respond to you. Another word that you have to direct the questions with sharp, short, which is difficult for the ethnic people, right? Especially, I came here since I was 20 years old, and English is not my language, it's my second language. And I have to really more prepare rather than the others.
So not only there's the challenge of being a woman, but there's an added challenge for being a foreign-born woman.
Exactly. You have to use the right word. You have to, when you interview the governors or the city council, you have to think what you're going to ask, and then you have to only one question because you don't have the chance. If you lose your chance, that's it, because if they have another 20 and 30 medias out there. And if you're asking the stupid questions, they will turn around and look and say, why are you wasting the time? You know, you kind of like, you have to really like protecting yourself and well prepared to get a negative feedback or positive feedback. But I go for it because, you know, I don't care.
Good for you.
And Aaron, why did you decide to go into journalism and being, you mentioned earlier, being an ethnic voice in the mainstream media? Why does that matter?
Well, I wanted to be journalism because I couldn't make any money acting. So
That's a good answer.
that's only part of it. But first of all, I think it's important. It's kind of self-evident why women should be in media. We're half the world. Okay, so we should be properly represented, all of us. And I think ethnic women in particular, you know, bear a lot of, are on the front lines of a lot of issues that we're covering these days. You know, world poverty, you know, immigration rights, all those things are very, you know, what goes without saying, you know, involves women. And so, for me, yeah, I have more, you know, I worked briefly for an African-American paper, but I have mostly worked for mainstream press, but I have been the ethnic voice, which is sort of a good thing and a bad thing, and I haven't quite figured out what it is really. I mean, like black papers developed because the mainstream press didn't even cover them, at all. Even so, it was a big triumph to have a paper that even reported the homicides in your community because death wasn't important to like the LA Times. So, and there is still African American media. And so what I find, I've decided that even though I don't think that, for example, African American issues are covered well in the mainstream press, that is my role. I don't mind doing that. I think that's what I'm there for. And as a woman, I think for all of us, maybe not for Super Pat because she just doesn't care, but I find as a reporter, and I'm in print, so I'm not in broadcast, but I kind of watch male reporters, and I see guys yelling on the phone. I mean, really, the tactic is very sort of beat down, you know, like to sort of get information that way. And I used to feel like that's what I need to do. I need to, but that's not really me. And I've found as a reporter and as an information gatherer and as a communicator, I perhaps did a better job of reporting because people seem more willing to talk to me because I didn't shout at them every other moment. Unless you're a public official, in which case you must always answer the question. But for just the average person, and I'm interested in talking to average people because I really believe their stories are left out of the media. And very often I would follow stories that no one thought was a story at all. Well, that's not interesting. That's just you know, an everyday sort of person. But I find those stories interesting. So I sort of let people talk, and I find, you know, that's worked for me. And my role, I've realized that has been to sort of illuminate the smaller stories that have a lot of symbolic meaning. And the press, actually, mainstream press is picking up on this. Like, say with the issue of poverty, which is, you know, you put a lot of statistics in front of people, and they don't read it. They don't care. It's not human. And now what everybody does is get that one woman or the one family and sort of make that the story, make that the way to illuminate a very big, gray, kind of boring issue. And I think women are frankly better at that than and maybe the men are taking, you know, kind of tips from us.
I agree.
That's good. That's good.
That's right.
And Gloria?
Well, and you know, we're kind of an interesting publication as well because we there tends to be this general idea about ethnic media that ethnic media is just reporting about things in a homeland somewhere, and in our publications we're again just also trying to put a face, you know, to give people a voice who haven't had it. But we also talk a lot about their life here in the United States, what we need to know to live here in this country. And it's not just all about reflecting on where we came from, but it's a lot about just what you need to know to be in this country. And we find that it's very empowering to communities to see children from their own neighborhoods, to see local businesses or have their stories, and they can start to really begin to relate to a life here and feel part of something rather than being a group outside looking in. And I think that for women, I think you're right, that women are they're feeling all those issues. They're dealing with the money situation, they're dealing with getting kids to school, they're dealing with, working, dealing with home, dealing with all those kinds of things, and they tend to be at the forefront. And for women in media, we bring that perspective to the workplace where, this is real life. This is what most people have to deal with every day. So I think we play a real important role in that sense of, it's not the old story of the man goes and he works and he goes home and everything's taken care of. It's everybody's kind of having to do a little bit of everything these days.
Could you give an example of how a woman would report on the story different than a male counterpart?
It's real tricky because you want to be real careful because you don't want there to always be a woman's point of view. You don't want to be pigeonholed that way, just like sometimes you don't always want an ethnic point of view on a story. Specifically if you're dealing with something perhaps like a school board race or an issue of building a school in a community. But I think where women can help is in sometimes a little bit of what you said, just that they can make people feel comfortable about telling their stories. They don't feel so intimidated that someone is trying to do something to them when they're going out and somebody's interviewing. And I think too that women in telling the stories are maybe sometimes more sensitive to nuances that men don't pick up on. That you're interviewing somebody and you see that, okay, we're talking about this little issue, but there's something else that's going on over here, and
Subtext.
Yeah, the subtext. And that's not to say all men, because I think there's some wonderful reporters, but sometimes I think that women have an ability to pick up on those things that maybe some male reporters don't.
That's true.
You feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The idea that I think that there's a sort of blended version of the reporter is really not valid. I remember recently feeling like one of my favorite writers, Steve Lopez, and he had gone undercover in the homeless community, and he got to write about it, and I was jealous. I just thought, gee, I don't have the guts to do that, and I didn't even think I could pull it off.
It may not be safe for you.
It might not be safe, but it wasn't safe for him either. But he did it. But then I think about the women who are the embedded reporters in Iraq, and they're putting it out there and they're doing it. And I think it comes down to your personal commitment to the job, and I've been fortunate in that I've been able to do not only be a writer and an editor, but also get involved in the business of the newspaper, and that actually is something that I think women don't often have the opportunity to do, and I feel fortunate about that, and I think we if we can sort of get a taste of all aspects of whether it's journalism or broadcast media or other businesses, then I think then we'll feel like we're fulfilled. We're complete as the half of the population.
I think we're more than half. I just wanted to say too, and add as you were talking, I was thinking, I'm sure this is true for you and for you as well. People see you as an ethnic person, whether you work in mainstream press or you work for ethnic press, right. You are seen as an advocate for your community. It's just natural that you're going to write a story that is, as you say, takes the ethnic point of view. Sometimes that's a little broad, but you expect it to be empathetic. And I don't always do that. You can have a great conversation with someone, then the story you write is sort of your own interpretation, and very often people. And if you don't write the story that people think is, completely supportive of the community or whatever, if you're a woman, it's like a double betrayal. Yeah. Well, because you're in that role of supporter, and you listen so well, and you seem so sympathetic. So if you were critical, people are more. Sometimes you get flack from your own community, and you get flack from everybody else. So it's difficult sometimes to develop your independence as a journalist, because you are seen as support staff, or not staff, but support person, and it can be, it can be not a fine line, but it's something you have to just expect.
That's right. That's right.
Because you feel, like I said, sometimes people feel like you've betrayed your ethnic group, and you betrayed the people that you've talked, the relationships you develop with people, and so sometimes you do have to be tough. As you'd have to be if you're a woman in any business.
Right.
But since this is the business of storytelling, it's a little odd. It's not quite as cut and dry as being a business manager. You're actually you're communicating, and you're profiting from people's stories.
For a long time in America, when we talk about ethnic minority, we tend to think of African American, Latino, Asians, and until 9/11, all of a sudden we found among our myth there's
more
Middle Eastern Americans, and so being a Middle Eastern of descent, how do you find the obstacle or the challenges?
Well, to clarify, first of all, I'm not of Middle Eastern descent. My father's Japanese. My mother is Mexican. And I was formerly married to a Palestinian gentleman for 24 years. And having said that, it's been my pleasure to be in the community because I have such a diverse family background with even more ethnic diversity in my background. But I'm here because I have been infused and I'm very passionate about what I've seen during that 23-year marriage, what that has lent me, or I should say it allowed me to be a part of the greater community. And with my backgrounds, plural, this magazine, one of the things that why I'm so passionate about this is that it's breaking stereotypes. It's redefining who the community is as a Middle Eastern community and not because of what happened after 9/11. And I think that's important. I'll tell you why. Because, in World War II, this happened to the Japanese, of course, in this country. And sometimes there is that, we talked a little bit about that earlier, that this happened in this country as well. And so we want to break the stereotype and redefine who we are. That's why this lifestyle magazine, Alohayati, we'll get to it later, it's really, I really applaud Wafa Kanan for championing this type of a magazine because it breaks stereotypes, it talks to issues, it speaks to issues that tradition says are taboo. And when we come back to the original question about women in media and ethnic women in media, I think it is a fact, historically, that women throughout history and every culture throughout the world, there are some traditions that say don't talk, wear a dress, just you're not allowed to, this kind of thing in every part of the world, and in every part of the world we have champions, women in our history throughout the world that have stood up and become leaders and pioneers and been able to go and lead where women were not able to go. And this is one of the reasons that I'm here. And as far as going to the tools that we have and the ethnic backgrounds that we serve, it is when we understand that, as we're all here, and we're just talking about being like a big mix of beautiful salad or whatever if you will, it is important that I think we recognize that without each of our individual, and our collective, I should say our passion to connect with the community at large, we really be missing a whole lot. And we do need to represent all those voices. And it takes courage, as you have indicated and you have indicated, and we've all talked about, to be in that firing line. But if we don't do it, I don't know how our generation of children following us are going to manage. Because we have to remember our parents and our grandparents, they were like, no, mija, you can't do that, or shh, don't say this. And so it's important.
That's true.
And I think because we've gathered, as you say, the storytelling handed down from our forefathers and our grandparents, I think that's part of what lends us to have that special kind of ESP sixth sense you're talking about, with those nuances when you're doing an interview, and there's so much more depth that you do that off camera sometimes. So that's what I think we might bring, without disrespecting men, but women as nurturers. I think we tend to listen to the babies, we tend to listen to the teenagers, we tend to listen to our children's friends who have a problem that they can't tell their parents about. So in all of that, I think we bring a lot to the table.
That's
a
absolutely
good one.
right. Yeah. Because actually, woman, she is the family creator. She feels with everybody in the family,
That's right.
from the husband to the kids. In fact, the kid comes from her body, from her stomach. So she feels with all aspects, all things around the subject. So when she does job, she, in back of her mind, she feels that she will benefit everybody from around her, not like the man who have the job as a job.
That's right.
And when she work harder. As Pat mentioned, we have accent, we have background, we have a lot of things, issues to focus on it, to do the better job. So we work double and triple harder than the man to not be failure. We like to be successful. That's why we work harder, and hopefully we always be succeed. Actually, my magazine comes on 1995, Shuruq magazine. It was the first magazine in America for family, Arab American family, talking about the same subject because we didn't have it at that time. We have newspapers, we don't have magazine. I couldn't continue for 5 years on and off, but the minute I saw Wafa have the magazine, I immediately called her, congratulate her, and welcome her to the field because she covered our need and she comes with the things I need to continue. I couldn't until now. So you're welcome also.
Cool.
She's wonderful.
I wonder, because I'm picking up something here too, and I'm just curious because I know that as a Latina, Mexican American, Chicana, going back, there's always there's sometimes this debate about, do you represent women or do you represent your ethnic background? You know, Mexican, I see that, you know, sometimes we're put into those kinds of positions as well, looking at, okay, what is it? You know, my personal philosophy is that, you know, I can't separate the two. I'm an ethnic woman and I continue, but I know that with a lot of ethnic publications that take that advocacy role, that feel that, you know, they need to do that in the community, that sometimes there's a little difficulties in, you know, what you're doing and how you're presenting and
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know how it is for other publications, but like the LA Sentinel, which is a black newspaper in LA, they are racial advocates first, and everybody understands that. And, you know, frankly, in other ways, we're conservative. You don't have a lot of feminists in that paper. I mean, it's an old-fashioned word, you know, uplift. It's about illuminating issues in the race, and they don't do a very good job of that, frankly. But that's another story. So yeah, you're right. It's simultaneous. I can't separate, you know, a role of a woman and my role as an advocate. Sometimes I'm more of I don't like to even say advocate. Sometimes I am, but I think I always have the betterment of my ethnic group in mind. I think we all do. It doesn't mean you rubber stamp everything. You have to raise questions, and in some cultures or some groups that's more of a problem than in others. Certainly in the black community, you know, it's patriarchal. There's, you know, there are designated spokespeople, and there are people whose ideas you follow, and if you don't, you're sort of, you know, being traitors, and you are doing the worst thing. You are exposing the problems of the race to the white community. Yeah. Now, I don't know how big that is with other communities, but in the black community, it is an ancient problem, because there's always that problem of assimilation versus having an ethnic identity, and many people there's an assimilationist kind of approach, and there's the kind of post-60s ethnic identity thing, and how do you, and for black Americans it's really tough because this has been going on for so long and we're not there yet. We kind of feel like we should be, so we're not the immigrant group that's been here a generation or so. It feels like the fact we even have an ethnic publication is frustrating. We are not integrated into the mainstream media. So women probably pave that way better, but still we are beholden to, you know, the movers and shakers of the community, and they are very specific. And you're fine with them until you run you know, you kind of, if you disagree with them, and then it's You know, because it's like a family, you know, it's a family that fights. And to get beyond the family that fights and to establish your own independence and to be respected and to get something going outside of the narrow confines of the ethnic community is hard. But it's hard, you know, I think sometimes we say ethnic and it sounds narrow. I think we have to really do a shift and turn that around and say, you know, our perspective is a valid American perspective. And I think like whites are ethnic too. It's just not expressed that way. So we're always on the
Especially in California.
Of course. We're always on the defense, like, well, we're ethnic, but we're not that ethnic. Well, you know, everybody's got their group. But I think because the paradigm has been Caucasian American, whatever, you know, that's for so long that we're always having to explain or apologize for being a person who's Asian or has an accent or who is black, and it's really hard to change that. But I think maybe maybe we are changing that. But we're still doing that thing of we are here to advocate for our community, to raise the profile. But we're also trying to become part of the power structure. You know, there's nothing really wrong with that because we have to become part of that group. So it's very it's hard to negotiate that, and we have to negotiate it all the time.
One World Oregon, promoting cultural understanding through the media.
Okay, before we start, I would like to mention this event. We have Miss Jennifer in Monrovia, Old Monrovia. She is a lady, she is an active lady, and she is doing cross-cultural communication more than me, maybe in my one ward. She has her own one ward, and she is working hard for this issue. She introduced music and culture things Saturday of the end of the month. So you will come, all cultures, all my viewers, all my guests today. If you have any program or a musician or something, you introduce it to everybody on Monrovia, Old Monrovia with this festival. I'll give you the information later.
All right.
We welcome Jennifer as a woman also in our show. She is not here, but she is with us.
Wonderful.
Great. Okay. Great. So as you mentioned, we have some kind of issues as women in media. Yeah. So what do you have in mind also, as a man, to focus on question?
What would you like to know about us?
As a male journalist, if an editor's give me assignment, I would just go at it and without thinking of the multiple hats that I have to be aware of. But I thought Gloria and Aaron brought a very, very good point that being a woman journalist, you really have to negotiate. So if I could ask, on no matter issue, if I could ask Ellen, as an editor, how do you do that?
Well, our newspaper has kind of a bifurcated role. And one is to, in the Japanese language, to sort of present and interpret mainstream news, what you would see on the front page of the Times, and as a, just to those who don't necessarily read or buy mainstream newspapers. So that they want the news. They want the international news, the national news, the local news, the headlines. On our English side, however, it's more ethnocentric, where we do want, like if we do a story on Katrina, we want a story about a Japanese American family that was affected by Katrina, not the general story. We probably we would include that information, but we would. So we have this sort of dual personality, and we try to address that, and we actually function almost as two different staffs, two different companies within the same environment, and that's where being a woman comes in real handy, because the person who was raised in Japan, who is now working in the United States, and the person who's like third or fourth generation American, here, are different people. So you have to be able to kind of adapt and understand their concerns and be able to address those concerns. So it does present a challenge, but it's also a very enriching experience, because you do get to use all the skills, mother, teacher, child, daughter, in the job, and that's what I enjoy so much. But we also for a long time, struggled with an odd problem. That was being characterized as the model minority. So whenever something happened, like there were, gangs or something like that, we actually kind of thought, well, gee, at least it's more interesting than being thought of as like just quiet and perfect and with the straight A's and but.
If I can ask you, on issues like abortions, so would the content be different in the Japanese sections versus the English? And also, is there a separate lens from the Japanese woman perspective on that issues?
For an issue, I think that we're pretty objective when it comes to any kind of issue. The interesting thing about Japan was in the 1950s was the first country to generally distribute birth control. And what happened was it caused a labor shortage in the 70s and then another labor shortage in the 90s, and probably was largely responsible for the bursting of the Japan Incorporated bubble. So it was, that's probably oversimplified, but I think that had to do. But the issue of abortion, for instance, is not as emotionally charged as it might be in a community where the religion there's a common religion. We have in Little Tokyo, for instance, 8 churches, 1 Catholic, maybe 4 Buddhist, 2 1 Presbyterian, 1 Christian, and so those are sort of indicative of what the community is as a whole, very diverse. And so that's kind of the challenge we face every day.
That's interesting because, like, in the Black community, a lot of churchgoers. So I was thinking as you were talking, I've not seen any, say, pro-choice pieces in the LA Sentinel, for example. Doesn't fly culturally. But I could, if I were to write a pro-choice piece in the Times, fine. Because it's I'm sort of freed from the context of the community. Right. And sometimes that can be freeing, because I would have a difficult time having that conversation in my own community, because in many ways it's very conservative. And there's a lot of, for example, HIV/AIDS is rising fastest amongst Black women in the country, but there's very little discussion of that in the Black community because there is this very conservative Christian, undercurrent. So it's not, I could talk more freely about it in, say, another paper, which doesn't have that constraint. It's kind of a paradox, but it's kind of a safety valve in a way, or so I can actually have discussions. Maybe I'm having them with myself in the LA Times more so than or even the LA Weekly, which is even more liberal, than I could within the framework of the Black media, or even just in conversation. So that's just one peculiarity among many of being an ethnic person in the media.
Yeah, but that is true though, because of in Thai community as well, we are quite conservative, and what we are writing or what we are reporting, we really have to be, in frame. We don't have no choice in order to be freedom that much because of the community tradition and cultures is there.
Those sensitive issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever is sensitive issue, you really have to be careful on that, or otherwise it's going to be, your newspaper will be kaput or either, you know what I mean? That can give you a future or not.
Yes. Especially if it is man-made issues.
Exactly. How do you know?
As a publisher and also an editor, you actually wear 2 hats. You are a businesswoman.
Exactly.
And you also a journalist.
Yes.
So what were the challenges for you when you start your publication and then later your TV program?
Well, actually, when I started my publication, is that what your question is? Why do I get in? Okay. The reason I'm getting in because of, like Thai community is growing. And then the newspaper right over there, they're only one-side story. They really are not speaking for the not for voice of the people. They just get the copy the news from the mainstream from Thailand, and I don't think it's right. And beside that, my idea is you need to bridge between the old generation and the young generation together. You know, the old generation, they don't understand much of the English. They're not going to go by LA Times. You know, they wanted to read the Thai newspaper that sent from Thailand. And then also the young generation, they go by, you know, LA Times, LA Weekly, or watching the TVs. They don't see no newspaper. And then I don't want the gap in between the young generation that losing the cultures, you know, the beautiful of the Thai cultures. So my issue is, my intention is to have the newspaper that really carry on the culture, the Thai cultures to the young generation, as well as, you know, let the old generation understand more the young generation. So I try to bridge those two generations together. And then later on, I see the opportunity of to broadcast, because of right now we have two Thai stations in Los Angeles, you know, TV station. And I think that, you know, this TV station is also very nice because of I report on the whatever the events that happen. Like we do have a governor coming into our community, the mayors or whatever, the officer, government officer from Thailand, and then my show will produce the what do you call, the society that happened, and as well as the entertainment, and also give the educations. Like, you know, when Julian has a guest coming in, New California Media, right now is what, New National Media or something?
New American Media.
Yeah, New American Media. When they have a guest speaker come in a seminar or whatever, I usually try to interview them into my shows and try to benefit the society, the community.
But, you know, being a woman and also being a foreign-born woman, have you found a lot of difficulties in doing the work that you do?
Yes, very much. Like I said at the very beginning, I have to work twice harder than the rest. That you have to research more.
Yes.
You know? And then also, you know, you really have to. And then also, like me, I'm dressing toward American style, and most of the Thai old-fashioned people, they still look at me like, oh, you're representing Thai. Why you dress like this? You know what I mean? So it's changing. It's changing to the new trend. But yet I'm an old-fashioned woman. So they can't see that I'm an old-fashioned lady in the new. What do you say? New look.
There you go.
I say you dress better than most Americans.
So they kind of have a little contrast, but it's unique. That's why they call me Super Pat.
But Julian asked you if you wear two hats.
Yes.
I see you look nice without hat, but I think you wear more than two hats as a woman.
That's right.
That's the point what he asked.
Exactly, yeah. Not only that two hats, you know, I'm an owner, publisher. Oh, by the way, I would like to pinpoint now, as an editor, you know, I have to be fair to the other reporters that bring in, you know, then I edit their columns, and then I write my own columns as well. So I really have to be fair to them, or otherwise, you know, it will not work well. And beside that, I'm not only do the publication and broadcasting only. I do my own business. You know, I have a spa, massage. I do some export, import. You know.
Multitasking.
And then my hobby is I love to dance, ballroom dance.
Wonderful.
So I just, you know, I never have time. But I love it. I love it because of, as long as you generate the benefit back to the society. Yes. I think that I carry the happiness. I carry the enthusiasm, is that what you call? I carry the energy, and then, you know, give back to the community. Yes. Let them see when you have a happiness, give it to them.
Yes.
Yeah, take my happiness. I give it all to you.
You give your experience back to your community.
Exactly.
Which is great. Yes.
I think that's part of what you just said is what encapsulates why it's so important when we step out, so if you will, or so to speak, and take that chance to say, okay, I'll take the shots, I'll be in the firing line, but this has got to be done. What you just said with your old tradition, that you're an old-fashioned gal, basically, but you're taking a little bit of the flack. Well, how come you're dressed like that? And that's what's important, that you do take that risk, because the bottom line here is you're trying to be a communicator.
Exactly.
I've been known as what they call a connector, and that's what it is, and it's connecting at a certain level with all people. And that's the way that you know, that's the only way I think it really works, when you can step into that role and wear whatever it is. You know, it's not about what you're wearing as much as what's inside, right? But you're reflecting all that and still bringing your tradition. That's what this magazine does. It's a lifestyle magazine. There's no politics and no religion in this magazine, Alo Hayati. It was started, and actually Wafa began the group called Unique Image, or her business called Unique Image, in '97, and it's just was marketing and publishing and print work. But then it birthed the magazine Alo Hayati, and this lifestyle magazine speaks to a lot of what you're talking about. There's the traditions, there's the modernization,
Right.
there's the issues that are taboo, as we spoke, and they, of course, this creates a lot of controversy in some of the community that says, well, we don't talk about that, but see, our kids will go to somebody else and talk to somebody else's parents about that.
That's
so
right.
sometimes when we speak to our children, if we say collectively, they don't want to hear it from mom, but they'll listen to somebody's mom.
Exactly.
So it's nice
That's
that
right,
there's a
yeah.
vehicle to provide that for the generation, as well as celebrating who we are as far as the Middle Eastern community, celebrating who they are, and that they do like these wonderful things, and that there are a lot of beautiful contributions throughout history,
Yeah.
and they need to be celebrated.
And the name, the meaning of the name.
Yes. Alo Hayati means hello, darling.
Oh,
You know, this is about
darling.
life. Darling.
Yeah, wow.
And the point is that there are not the norm. People think, what is this? What does this mean? Maybe it's something offensive in there. Maybe I'm not going to connect with it. And you can see a lot of beautiful fashion. There's, as I said, some subjects to talk about. And actually, this is. Is it
looks like a wonderful magazine.
The actress.
Yeah.
So it just one of the things too is that Wafa will always take into consideration if something doesn't set right with one of the readers, you can always contact her and have a rebuttal or have some kind of point of view where she will actually talk with you and say, you know what, I respect that, and please send me some kind of article where I can, you can have a voice. And that's real important because, as you said, when you're an editor, the chief, the this, the that, sometimes if it's all about Pat, which I know we don't, I'm just saying this, which is true. If it is all about you, then you don't do a service to the community. But as you said so graciously, it's so important because you do wear those hats. You are the boss. That you are fair to in the editing portion, so that they can say, yes, she's super Pat because she really does care about the
I'm
community.
glad you magnified that.
Because it's important, because you do care about the voice of the whole community. That's really
You
important.
carry the responsibility.
Thank you.
Yes, you do.
There's quite a few female, in the women magazines and
Oh, yes.
publications out there. So why is there still a need for women journalists in the media when you have your own media outlets out there, and at the same time that some of these publications do sort of perpetuate the stereotypes about women?
Well, you just hit on it. For them, not exactly journalism. They're not about. Their goal is not to illuminate issues, serious issues. That's for the traditional women stuff, like fashion, and although actually fashion can be very political. So I don't want to knock that, but I mean, there's been women's magazines since the 1800s or further back than that. But I think what we're talking about now is how women coming to the forefront.
That's right.
Coming to the forefront and being being the spokespeople for issues that affect the world. Now I've been known to take a small issue like fashion and make it into a much larger one. But again, we're kind of changing roles. I think it's taken a long time, but I think we're doing that. And I was listening to you guys talk, and I have to just say that you talk about bridging the old world and the new, and with what you do and what Gloria does, and with Ellen, and the common thread, the similarities that you all you have you're connected by language. You have the language of home. You have the language. People still speak the language here.
Right.
So there's that direct line. But for African Americans, it's been so hard. It's not about language for us because we all speak English, right? Some of us better than others. But for us, the common thing is not language, but interest. What are our interests? And how do we define, for us, we have to define what are our common interests, which is a much harder thing. It's not automatic at all, because with us, some of us become more middle class, the interests change. And so the question becomes, do we carry the interests of the poor people, those who are unfortunate?
Okay.
Or do we just sort of let that go and sort of join the mainstream, join the middle class? Or is that even possible? So it's a much more complicated thing, and for us being the non-model minority, the complete antithesis of what you, no, seriously. We are the gangs, the ghetto, the drug. I mean, I'm saying that. It's a stereotype.
Right.
But there's some truth to the tragedy. So for women, I think as a woman, you know, reporting on these kinds of things, I think hopefully I can illuminate or be more, that's where it's helpful to be more sympathetic and to promote those interests for everyone. And I hope that I can, you know, I will continue to do that.
For me, when I published Shuruk in 1995, it was reflecting from my life. I grew up on magazine, actually. The magazine at that time was Hawa. Eve magazine, come from Egypt. I was 16 when I got married.
Oh, wow.
I don't know anything about marriage life or kids or whatever it is. So that magazine was like my school.
I see.
Teaching me details, how to deal with husband, with kids, with food, how to make dresses. So in my mind, this is helpful for women at home. That's why my magazine was for family and how to adjust in this country. How to deal with life in this country. No politics, no religion.
Actually, I'm glad to hear that.
This
That
is
could be
Queen
very
Noor,
helpful, huh?
Yeah, because our ladies at home, 90%, 95%
It's
of
kind of,
ladies at home.
enclosed, right?
They don't look at internet. They don't look at English stations. We need Arabic language on TV. And you know, Joanne, we don't have that luxury things. We don't have TV show. We don't have anything to lead the ladies at home, which I believe they are the most important person in the family, to lead the family, to help the family.
Wow.
So it is like kind of information we need it badly. So through magazine will be helpful through her language.
Okay.
So Alo Hayati comes 10 years later with the new generation, with what we need now to communicate with other groups, because we have to open the door for other ethnic groups, because we are part of America, and America built up with ethnic groups. We are not strangers. We shouldn't label ourselves as ethnic groups. We are American, and this is the way America built up. That's why Joanne was doing our mission without meeting, because we have to build the bridge between each other, to know each other.
Exactly.
In our belief, it will be access for love and peace.
Right.
I can imagine that because our publication is so old and the Hispanic Latino population has been here for so long, much, you know, in some ways we're very similar to the African American population in that, you know, we're here, we've been here, but yet there are all these ideas of who we are that may not necessarily be true, and they have a long history in the media of portrayal, you know, of bringing things out. And so when you talk about some of this debate, and I can imagine that these other publications particularly, and with us who have a lot of immigrants reading the newspaper now, that those debates moving from there into a lot of the politics and the religion is going to be a natural occurrence. I mean, in time it's going to evolve into a lot of those things, because the reality is that people have to know what they're doing in the United States. They have to know about the lives, you know, their lives in these communities. And it's, you know, eventually your children will branch out. They're no longer going to be all within one little community. They're going to have friends of different color, and they're going to have people that they're exposed to. So, I mean, so it kind of evolves. And I know with us, I mean, we're because we've been in the community so long, we're Hispanic newspapers, we're bilingual, and there are all these expectations that we have this viewpoint. And it's very difficult trying to balance, you know, that viewpoint with some of the realities within the community, and bringing them out. You know, we did an issue where we had so many calls because of, you know, everybody knows there's been all these immigration marches, and we did articles where we've actually, in Spanish, we're interviewing the other side, right? The people who are pro, and a lot of them are Latino voices who are saying, you know, wait a minute, we're concerned about some immigration things. And we showed some people in marches, and we did, you know, we had Ted Hayes and all these people in the front page. People were going, well, how can you give them space? I mean, it is such a betrayal. But the reality is that we're not as homogeneous as people tend to think that we are. So it's, and you're going to see, I think, a lot of publications, you've been around 100 years, you're going to see that, you know, there's all kinds of viewpoints.
I think it's really natural too. It's natural when you're in your environment that you are going to come against some of these things where they'll be, well, you know, you're an advocate. You know, I thought you'd understand my, you know, and it's. But you have to remember, you're actually, as your role, as you said, you've got to be sensitive to both sides. And as in my past, I was maestra de bailes folclóricos. I mean, sorry, I was a ballet folklórico teacher for about 10 years in Jersey Avenue School, and it was a really wonderful thing. In that environment, as I'm teaching, you know, the dance for kids, all of a sudden there was this, you know, things happening in the Middle Eastern part of the world, and a lot of ugly news that we heard. And so I had that opportunity, because I was in the environment, to bring in Debki, to bring in the food and the fashion and traditions of the Middle Eastern culture, because that was my environment at home. And that's what I mean. I think in the natural environment that we're in when we're working, it just comes to us, I think, as women and nurturers, to say, well, let me show you a better way. I want you to taste this, and, you know, what do you think it is? And then look at this beautiful dress, or look at this, you know, the kursi jab, or the gold beautiful, you know, and they're like, wow, ooh, you know, and then it's, well, this is from the Middle Eastern part of the world. This is from Jordan or Palestine or Syria, and all the beaded clothes, and the kids, wow, their eyes popped open, and the next thing it led to is bringing the dance. And the next thing it led to is going to the churches with it, and you know what I mean? So that's in the natural. I think that's where, you know, we have the opportunity to bridge the education of the mainstream public for that. It's great.
I'm not going to convince anybody that way. I don't cook, and I got a D- in sewing in 8th grade. So unfortunately, that's not one of my strengths. But I was, you know, it was funny. I was reading a story in Newsweek. Someone, you know, emailed me a story in Newsweek about the whole Latino-Black cooperation. That's a big issue now because of the immigration. And people just think Latinos, I think immigration. That's by far the biggest number of immigrants. So even though it includes a lot of other people, it's like the question is, what are we going to do now, because African Americans and Latinos live together? So there was a story in Newsweek that talked about it, and they focused on a city in Southern California, Linwood, which is next to Compton. I don't know if you read the story. And the story, the premise was, well, gee, what do we, you know, the mayor is Latino, and the black population is maybe 12% now. And the premise was, well, these two communities who have always gotten along, what do they do now? And I thought, wait a minute, that premise is a little. Oh no, I'm sorry. What it said was they are natural allies, and so why can't they be natural allies now? I want to say that's not quite true, because that's a positive stereotype that we all get along all the time, and that we have our common interests are just all interlocked. But that's not the case. We have different histories, we have different expectations, and I think that it's up to us to kind of, you know, to pull together, but to note those differences. And I think we've been, you know, women especially, maybe a little afraid of pointing that out. That hey, you know, there's mistrust on both sides, because everybody protects their own. And so it's telling that story about the differences, but also keeping an eye on what we need to do practically to come together. But not everyone's interested in coming together. And we have to talk about why that may be true.
That's it.
One World Org, promoting cultural understanding through the media.
So we have been talking about the media and what we have also as ethnic groups in the media, as Hispanic media, for example. They have a lot of channels and magazines and other source of media. But for the Arab American communities, actually we have nothing. We cannot count on television because we don't have. That's why we struggle to build up a new show. Actually we have, but it's not counted, because what we have in my opinion, becomes against us. We have almost 20 or 25 channels comes from Middle East. That's right. Speak Arabic, ladies happy with it. At home, they hear the language, they feel comfortable, but what is in it for us here? we need to hear something from America. We are American now. We should switch our thinking to be adopting the new living, new home living. Otherwise, we will be here in our body, we will be outside in our mind. So useless case, you know, useless person. Nothing can achieve when you have mind outside of the area, outside of your body at least. So it become against us, actually. That's why I was really fighting for that issue for years. I tried to have support from Middle East, to have station, TV station, or media, whatever, for years. No help. I don't know why, but now we started with a public access. As small as it is, at least there is a window to talk from. But how many things we need to talk from that window? We need something for our community in Arabic. We need something for our back communities in our Middle East, to tell them how we think here, how the American people think about the issues. We deal with a different way in Middle East. They don't know how to change their ideas. Also, we need to talk to the American people and other ethnic groups to let them know who we are. So there is a lot to talk about it in media, and we have none of media, and this is hard for us. So that's why our struggle is bigger than other groups' struggle. But together, when we now talk together, we will put hands together and we will feed the media through women, maybe in media, with our feeling, with the need, what we think it is helpful, we can do better. So at the end of the show, I would like to know if there is anything we like to add to the subject. Would you mind? The last talk, please.
Well,
If I can add just one detail to that, is
Okay.
that
Go ahead.
you know, obviously we still have a long way in terms of having women in the media.
Yes.
And according to a lot of surveys, the total number is about 30% in all the newsroom across the country. And you break it down to the number of ethnic women, it's even less. So in addition to a closing remark, if you can also mention about what kind of impact you think, even so, even at this low number, what kind of impact women journalists have made in the world of media and covering stories for the communities?
well, for my opinion, I think that we, all of us, have shown our own community or our own ethnic people to, you know, come forward, speak, get whatever you're right. You know, we show them that don't have to be afraid of anything. We are right now in America, in freedom country. So, you know, whatever you want, as long as it's, you know, right for you, just stand and speak out for it. Do not keep it. Do not be afraid. And do not, you know, sit on your own benefit. Like that Thai community, you know, I am the leader in showing them that, hey, women can speak out. Women can do a lot of things. And then also, it doesn't mean that we get carried away and be like ugly personality. We still keep our tradition and to be, you know, a conservative woman, but yet you speak for your own right. Don't have to be afraid. And I think that I have shown them, because of 2002, I just, you know, I was the candidate for the City Council of Hollywood at that time. And I was the only one woman in the Thai community to be, you know, the candidate. Who else would think that I would do that? You know, my English is not perfect, my politics is not really, you know, great, but because of, I wanted to do the right thing for the Thai community. I want to be the voice of them. I want the government, I want the city to be recognized. Hey, Thai community exists, and we are interested in the politics as well. So don't forget us. You know, hey, we are here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
At least we have about 200,000-300,000 people, Thai people right here. Why we keep our mouth shut and then wait until they hand us the thing? I say, no, this is not America. America is, you know, they're taking care of you. And fortunately, and thank God that we are in America. I have to say that thank you very much, America, United States of America have been taking good care of us. No matter what communities, they have give us an opportunity to live a new life. And why don't we, you know, be a good citizen and do the right thing for our own community. Speak up. And then also, show them, as we are the pioneer. I am the pioneer. I'm not the second generation or whatever. And a lot of pioneer people, they still, carry their own, the old cultures and old traditions. They don't want to show. They are afraid of. But I'm not. I'm very rare one. And as long as you don't carry away and make yourself ugly personality, that's it. Mm-hmm. You do the right thing for yourself. You do the right thing for the community. You be good citizen to the United States of America, and
your new home.
Yeah, your new home, and you set for it and do whatever it takes to make good for your community and make good for your new country.
Would love to see a show.
You will. Well, I guess my final remark is we do need the storytellers, and we need storytellers with unique perspectives. We need different voices. We need the voices of people, around this table. And so I'd like to encourage anyone who hears this message or sees the show to think about writing, think about journalism as a career. So.
Well, I'm not feeling quite as patriotic as Pat.
Well, thank you.
Not that I'm not happy to be here, but and also I think African Americans have been a big mouth a long time, and it hasn't gotten us all as far as we need to be. But I think that I'm very fortunate to be in the position I'm in, and I know there's terrible underrepresentation still, not just of women, but of ethnic women and I think of black women. But I feel, nonetheless, fortunate to have the platform I have, and I will use it, as much as I can. And I think over, my career, I've always kind of said to myself, well, I'm not really the leader here. I'm just sort of occupying the space until the real voice gets here. And I realize I'm not doing myself a service by saying that. So this is not a dress rehearsal, This is me, doing what I should be doing, and it does. And I finally have only admitted in the last year, this does have a benefit, and I think that it has an effect. And I think it's sometimes for women, we don't really accept that we're making a big difference, even though we make a lot of difference. So yes. I'm just, that's where I'm at now. But I do encourage other black people to be a voice, because you can never have too many.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, I just think that, being in a publication that can, express the views of the community and tell the stories is really a privilege to be able to do that, because, and not many people have that opportunity. And as, we heard, fewer women and fewer ethnic women. And ethnic people in general, but and there really is a need, and it's important that that the media reflect the people that it's supposed to represent, and in our capacity we're able to do that. So, and I'm just hoping more young people will choose the career and choose the vocation and take that leadership role, because you may not at one moment be talking about an issue that is just about blacks or about Hispanics. I mean, it's just about, stories that need to be told all the time, and sometimes they happen to be about blacks, and sometimes they happen to be about Hispanics or people from Taiwan or Pelonese or whatever. And it's important that we take advantage of those opportunities when they do provide themselves.
Well, I'd say that it's an honor and a pleasure to sit in a room with so many wonderful, energetic, and I think visionary women. I'm sorry to, I need to say that. I really do. I need to honor that as well. And thank you for what you've led and you've been a model for. I believe one of the things I'd like the viewers to know, young people and everybody, to know that the magazine Alo Hayati is at Barnes & Noble and also at Borders. But if you get a chance to take a look at that magazine, anything you want to send to the editor, I promise you will get a response, and that is part of the promise to you. And as far as our role, and as we step out of this room back into on the freeway, normal life, I just say this. I say that I think that the change has been in the air for a long time, but as we continue to nourish the seeds of transformation and getting those people out there aware that women are here to stay, we have something to bring to the table. We have our unique perspective, and it is valuable, and that we don't need maybe the mainstream validation for that, because we believe it's incumbent to ourselves to carry that responsibility. Of course, we look back. Of course, we reflect. We do the storytelling and we gather information. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's incumbent upon us. It's our responsibility. And I'll tell you, I feel blessed, not only being in this country, but blessed that I can be at peace, that I'm trying to do the best I can to serve the community, as you all are. So thank you for having me.
As you mentioned, all of you, we all, I believe, pioneers, because we have something to do different than the other. But it tells me now that we need to have program, Mr. Julian, it's our duty to have program to educate women to be in public relation, communication, and media. We have to have classes to have more young generation, more women in media, because we need it badly. And I believe they can change a lot of things in the media, mainstream now. And one woman can do the difference. I learned that from Rosa Parks, actually. That's why I started again by myself. I was waiting to be united, unity. As Arab, it is impossible to see a group of people think the same way. I was waiting and waiting. Then when I saw Rosa Parks and her story, why not? One woman made that difference. So she gave me the encouragement and courage to do that, so I pushed myself to do it by myself, which is not easy.
No.
Now we are looking for a group of ladies, and we should have a commitment that we will be in touch. At least we will send an email or letter to have it in your publication, from us to you, from you to us, to have some more stories in your publication about other groups, and hopefully will be for better future. And we need more shows like this, actually, to address issues, because one show will not cover everything.
Definitely, yes.
And really, thank you for coming. Thank you, Julianne, for helping me out with this show. Actually, we need the man view, point of view,
no,
but not as
I agree, you don't.
no, but it's nice to share with us. It's nice because we are not against.
No,
we are together. If we think together, we'll build a better world, better future.
But I would say that we can live without men, but it would be much better if we can have men.
So anyway, before the show, actually, I would like to address a festival for the Arab community, Arab American community, on September. And it is, I guess we will have it later also. It's September, far away, but at least it is cultural, and it is fun to watch it. And hopefully I will maybe invite you all, my viewers, and all my guests to that event in Garden Grove. It is the 11th.
This is the 11th annual.
11th years. They do it. It is 3 days, cultural things. It's fun to see, and good to know other cultural group around us. And at the end of the show, on behalf of my guests, I thank you, my viewers, for watching us, and we'll see you next time.